So before we get to this article that I believe needs to be covered, I want to quickly mention that last week Nintendo was in the center of a firestorm after gamers discovered that a Japanese game that currently is being brought to the West has been censored in apparently multiple ways. There was some sort of false flag press release that gained traction for a while that has muddied the waters on this issue, but as far as I understand, at least one aspect of this game involving a supporting character has been outright censored to, quote, make it more appropriate, or I should say make it appropriate for that particular territory, which in this case is the West. Apparently in the game, the protagonist tricks a supporting character into taking a psychedelic narcotic as a means of helping that character get over their social anxiety around women. This one plot point has been exaggerated as date rape, and because the character can be a romance option for the male protagonist despite the character's implied attraction to girls, this has been called gay conversion therapy. And no, I'm not kidding. This is what has been reported on multiple fucking websites. It doesn't matter that the protagonist can also be a girl, which makes it Yuri, a non-straight relationship. It doesn't matter that these same people ramble endlessly about their bisexuality, pansexuality, queer whatever sexuality. Because this character likes boys and girls, the game required censorship. My advice for those of you that see this as an issue is not to buy this game. It's obvious to me that Nintendo has no respect for artists or even their own audience. But getting back to the point of this video, another news story that caught my attention earlier in the month came just 3 days after I uploaded this video, where I coined the term Bay Area moralists. The reference in this commentary was the totalitarian sense of morality the Christian right has in regards to social issues and their expectations that everything should be catered according to their beliefs. Unfortunately, I believe some of you may have taken my commentary the wrong way when I criticized the religious right for their totalitarian attitudes, and you saw it as though I made a direct link to video game censorship. The Christian right can be more closely identified with protesting rock music way back when, and even today with bizarre shit like Harry Potter. But the big push that came back in the 90s with Congress trying to pass multiple draconian bills to stomp on artistic expression in the video game industry came primarily from congressional Democrats. Joe Lieberman headed the most recognized hearings regarding violence in video games and was backed by many other Democratic figures, including current presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, who introduced the equally draconian Family Entertainment Protection Act in 2005, which Lieberman co-sponsored. It's fair to say that there was bipartisan support for this bill, and the even worse Communications Decency Act, which was another awful, heavy-handed bill that has been actually challenged in the Supreme Court multiple times by the ACLU to a largely positive effect. The issue of video game censorship has evolved over the years. If you actually go back and listen to the rhetoric used by congressional sponsors, you'll hear familiar talking points, but the difference is this. The religious right assumes their moral superiority over others, and please don't be a butthurt Christian and feed me bullshit as if I haven't lived in this country for 25 years and haven't heard firsthand from strangers and family alike how incredibly moral, true Christians are. I get that not everyone is an asshole about their faith, but enough people are that you're being completely disingenuous by not owning up to an ego problem particular Christians have. The point of the video that I made is that modern progressives, or the regressive left, or whatever you want to refer to these people as, I say Bay Area moralists in terms of gaming, like the religious right, assume their moral superiority over others. Every time you hear these people condemning a game with bouncy boobies or not enough tokenism, the moral superiority oozes out of them. And it isn't just that, right? If you listen to their arguments, the bedrock that they base their condemnations on is rooted in morality. It's not about expression or even a modicum of objective criticism. It's about this piece of art being problematic. It has components that are sinful, heretical, blasphemous, and immoral. Sexism, racism, misogyny, transmisogyny, patriarchy, and all these fucking buzzwords describe something they find immoral. So should you or I argue that we don't give a fuck about their morality, they don't actually understand where we're coming from because they assume everyone agrees with their moral beliefs. And while some believe that our best solution to this dilemma is to somehow fucking deprogram these people into realizing that just because they don't like a picture in an art gallery, it doesn't mean they get to take it down, I think that's going to take far too fucking long. We are seeing the industry react to these ideologues to the detriment of the consumers. Our best bet, in my opinion, is to expose these fucking lunatics for what they are, ideologues that are not buying games. Their ideas do not sell games, and their moral posturing is fascist bullshit that comes at the expense of artistic expression. With all that out of the way, let's read this article, projecting everything I just laid out at the feet of the Bay Area moral majority, back onto working class consumers. There was a time, back when I was a teenager, when I could count on organized protesters of a particular religious bent to get together and try to shut something down. Usually it was something they hadn't even seen or heard or read, and I know that's true because Harry Potter is the most popular Christ story since the original, and yet it's been a consistent presence on challenged book lists since 1999 for promoting unchristian witchcraft. These people are still around, of course, but in the tech-centric social media world, they've been supplanted by a new group with different uniforms but a startlingly similar aim. So we've run into our first problem here, because I've met plenty of conservative and Christian gamers, and I've never correlated either group with video game censorship. We aren't talking about Christians that haven't read Harry Potter trying to censor video games. I'm certain there are Christians that want video games censored, but they aren't the ones targeting the gaming press. And as illustrated by my last video, where I called Trump a crypto-fascist and a tiny portion of my audience got sand in their pussies, a serious portion of us that don't fucking care about your moralist posturing aren't in any way right-wing. This entire article starts on a false premise, but when you're playing mental gymnastics, that's the kind of thing that tends to happen. Gamers, specifically right-wing reactionary gamers, have become the new religious right, looking to blast art they don't like from the face of the earth. That fucking projection, guys. I can't even offer additional commentary, so we're just going to continue. Once there was a pretty significant debate over the censorship of video games. Video game activist Jack Thompson crowed that violent games made people shoot up schools. Doom was accused of promoting devil worship, and Congress held hearings on that subject. Much of the rhetoric calling for the censor or banning of games was coming from the same voices who protested Marilyn Manson and Dogma. Except in the cases that it wasn't. Except in the cases that it was spearheaded by congressional Democrats, of whom I realize many left-wing Americans will oust Joe Lieberman as a Democrat in name only, and I won't even offer a defense for that, although if you look at his record, I could. But you can't lay all of this at the feet of the religious right, especially now when conservatives are flocking around personalities such as Milo Yiannopoulos, who is clearly, demonstrably opposed to censorship in the video game industry. You're playing mental gymnastics because you know the onus is on your doorstep You fucking people are the asshole censors. Not right-wing reactionary gamers, it's the fucking Bay Area moralists, aka you, pal. Games were often already heavily censored by the American branch of Nintendo, with the bloodless Super Nintendo port of Mortal Kombat being pretty much the entire debate in microcosm. However, though there was a lot of talk about official censorship, there was never really any serious chance that it would happen in America. Video games were declared free speech by the Supreme Court in 2005 in a 7-2 decision, and Nintendo had given up their dream of completely family-friendly entertainment by 1994. Mature content has become a badge of honor to the gamer community. It was proof that the medium couldn't be stopped by moralistic thugs determined to protect us from ourselves. Speak for yourself. I already did a video on this. Fuck the ESRB. They're an awful organization that limits the distribution of games with their utterly subjective, haphazard ratings, and the ESA itself publishes misleading statistics to placate soccer moms, but feeds the Bay Area moralists all the bullshit they want to hear as though they actually have an argument. I've been doing a slow but steady amount of research into the annual ESA reports, and I think it's safe to say at this point that the ESA and the ESRB exist as PR against particular censors. If it isn't coming from Congress or directly impacting the largest publishers, the ESA doesn't give one single fuck. When it comes to the Bay Area moral majority, the ESA has proven to be about as impotent as an 80-year-old's limp dick. And when I have the time, you can expect another video by me calling out their bullshit statistics. Because honestly, the minute you look into this issue, the ESA has unquestionably published either wildly misleading or outright false numbers in regards to gaming demographics. If you happen to come across a study on game sales for PC, PlayStation, Xbox, Wii U, and especially mobile platforms, please send it my way, because I'm telling you guys, the more I personally dig into this subject, the more evidence I discover that directly contradicts the ESA numbers. That was the status quo for a long time, until the rise of social critiquing of games came about. Journalists like Leigh Alexander and Maddie Bryce, who I have no fucking idea who Maddie Bryce is, as well as YouTubers like Anita Sarkeesian, began looking at game content, both narrative and mechanical. Okay, so here's where we have to stop. Yeah, horseshit on mechanical when it comes to Sarkeesian. I mean, how about the time she made the claim that Hitman Absolution promotes killing strippers when it's actually the exact fucking opposite? The game penalizes you specifically, audibly, and even on screen for killing civilians. I mean, I could rant for the next hour as to why I fucking hated Hitman Absolution and how it's practically the Mass Effect 3 of the franchise. This was an awful game that completely derailed an otherwise solid franchise, but Anita never ever gives that kind of context to her so-called criticism. John McIntosh gives her a script and she reads it. She appears to be a feminist. That's what her lectures are about. Why so many people insist that she has anything relevant to say to me as a gamer, or as a consumer, or as a liberal is beyond me. Because not a fucking word she has said publicly that I've come across is relevant to my interests. Contrary to what every fucking retard leaves in my comment section as to, you haven't listened to her commentaries. I have. I have listened to her sophist bullshit. I have listened to her moralizing dogma. I'm sorry, but I'm an atheist. I don't care how scary you find your imaginary patriarchy to be. I don't care how sinful you find me to be and how moral I could be if I had faith in feminism. I don't need to confess and atone for being problematic. I'm an atheist and I have no interest in joining your fucking religion. It was not, as a lot of gamers like to claim, a call to censor or ban that content. It was just looking at it in a more thoughtful and nuanced way. With games now protected by all the power of the First Amendment, you think that discussion over them could flourish more freely since they were in no danger of being taken away. Like Dead or Alive Extreme, which wasn't in any way demonized for a decade and abandoned when it came to localization. Because I can import this game at my own expense and it happens to have subtitles. That means it wasn't taken away from me. Let me tell you something that I already know. Every single press outlet is going to crucify this game when it releases because their reviewers are ideologically driven. But that shouldn't mean anything to me, right? You people could not be any more obvious or transparent in where you're coming from on these issues, on this issue of censorship in video games. You wrap yourselves in the First Amendment when it's convenient, but you abhor the principle of free expression. That's not what happened, though. Organized retaliation against the concept of conversation and dialogue in the form of 4chan ops and Gamergate happened instead. 4chan banned Gamergate very early on. Everyone that was on 4chan in regards to Gamergate is either now on Kotaku in Action or 8chan. And I'm not on 8chan, and I don't have a Reddit account. So how do I know this? How do I know about this fact? Simple. I'm not a journalist. That's how I know. Sarkeesian's videos were constantly flagged on YouTube in an attempt to take them down, and online campaigns to have various journalists discredited or fired became a new way of life for anyone who dared deconstructing games from a social justice perspective. From a Marxist perspective, you mean. From a labels-obsessed, race-obsessed, ethnocentric, dogmatic, and ideologically driven perspective, you mean. The message was clear. Shut up. Stop talking right now. Yes, shut up. Shut the fuck up. This form of criticism is illegitimate and slanderous. You people print libel and face no consequences for it outside of a handful of dissenting voices. And let's not forget what provoked Gamergate. Let's not forget that gamers have been trashed by these cocksuckers for years. You people are corrupt, incompetent, egotistic West Coast hipster shitheels that should be tossed out of the industry. You write incendiary bullshit that directly targets the consumers. The only conversation you people want is where you incessantly insult your audience and we all silently nod our heads to your fucking bigotry. So you got it half right. I do want you to shut up, but it stems from the fact that you are a slanderous bigot. This was the first way that gamers became the new apostles in the church of censorship, and it's more related to the religious protests in the 90s than many realize. You fucking retard. It was Joe Lieberman as the face of video game censorship. Jack Thompson may have been the largest advocate, but even he wasn't basing his beliefs on religion alone. He cited horseshit studies and Congress ran with it. You are laying blame disproportionately on the religious right, and you know it. At the heart of the movement to shut down game critique is an appeal to tradition and purity, discussing how sexualized avatars contribute to the objectification of women in the real world gets framed as an attack similar to how women entering the workplace in greater numbers in the 1980s were often framed as an attack on the traditional gender roles celebrated in the Bible. Whenever women or other minorities speak up against, how much bullshit can you throw into one article? At once, because there's so much that could be said here. There is so much that can actually be said for each one of these fucking things. About how not only are these things from other eras, okay? These are from differing eras. These are not all in the 90s. You just cited the 90s. Now we're talking about the 80s. Now we're going back to like the fucking 50s. You're just all over the place. And it's because you know this is a totally disingenuous argument, so you're just throwing everything at the screen and hoping something sticks. But it's total bullshit. This is such sophistry. Whenever women or other minorities speak up against systems that oppress them, it challenges the idea that the current norm is good, and if the norm is not good, then we are bad for having supported or participated in it. Criticism of the status quo, no matter how mild, is felt like an attack on the person's morality. Religious people in the 80s who were comfortable with traditional gender roles, we're bouncing around through eras, took the idea of someone else rejecting those roles as a judgment. Likewise, players who are perfectly happy with a white male Eurocentric, violent, heteronormative status quo in gaming feel judged for that happiness when marginalized people and their allies speak up about how it affects them. Alongside the wave of socially conscious critics has also come a brilliant new world of indie game development. Individuals and small teams have access to both the tools to create games and tremendous distribution systems thanks to Steam and the mobile phone game platforms that cater to their ideology. Free from the massive sales expectations of AAA gaming and therefore less beholden to the status quo, these games are often the ones that social critics applaud. They take chances on main characters being non-white or female or gay. They play with subverting tropes instead of relying on them. I could just cite Life is Strange. That's all I need to do in this, because what you're saying isn't in any way true. Because despite how bad Life is Strange as a game is, and how much the press just masturbates to it, Life is Strange is actually bizarrely popular. This game has been showered in praise, awards, free press, and there's even a contingent of my own audience that despises even one word of criticism on my part towards this amateurish, hacky narrative game that makes Kane and Lynch 2 look like Grand Theft Auto 5. Consequently, these games tend to be ones that critics interested in... What? Consequently, these games tend to be the ones that critics are interested in. There you go. You're welcome. You know, do you guys have a fucking editor? In new, more diverse fare, get really excited about. Maybe I'm the idiot here. Consequently, these games tend to be ones that critics interested in new, more diverse fare get really excited about. Maybe I just can't read. The problem is that now there is a whole community of gamers dedicated to hating absolutely anything that these critics enjoy, and they often go on dedicated harassment campaigns to try and shut down the games that drive them away. Again, Life is Strange. Talk to my fucking audience. You're absolutely wrong. For instance, That Dragon Cancer has just come out, a game I've been avidly waiting for more than 2 years. It's a game about navigating the world of parents whose son is diagnosed with a rare and deadly form of cancer as a baby. I can't imagine why gamers would want to play this kind of game. Although, you know, I do quite enjoy that kind of gallows humor. The game was inspired by the experiences of creators Amy and Ryan Green, whose son Joel lived to the age of 5 after being given only 4 months to live when he was 1. It sounds like a beautiful bit of interactive art, and as someone who has watched way too many people lose to the dragon, I had a personal interest in playing it once I get paid this weekend. Yeah, like you're living on paycheck to paycheck, you fucking San Francisco bourgeois cunt. Unfortunately, Feminist Frequency gave this game a good review, and so, of course, the horde has descended on Steam to flood the forums with cries of feels marketing and saying the Greens are immoral for not donating profits to cancer research. Bear in mind that none of these people have actually played That Dragon Cancer. They just hate it because a bunch of other people they normally pick on all got together and said it made them feel something. Except, in reality, every guilt-tripping faggot on Steam fell all over themselves to leave positive reviews for this emotional porn game. But hey, why let facts get in the way of a good story? Don't believe me? Here's one who really wants to play Pony Island, but can't bring himself to do it because game developer Zoe Quinn, a prime Gamergate target, liked it. He otherwise thinks the game looks good, but because it has a vague connection to one of the dreaded others who must be destroyed to preserve game purity, he won't drop $5. Here's the men's rights crowd judging Broken Age without playing it because it looks like a raging feminist turd. I bought the game and played it. It was a waste of time and money. When creator Tim Schafer took to Reddit for an Ask Me Anything session, he was immediately flooded by trolls trying to shut down any real conversation. If by trolls you mean desperate sycophants finding any reason to continue feeding this fat fuck money when he is the Bernie Madoff of gaming, Sure, yeah, he was sworn by them. Once again, I've come to a point in my life where I just know certain things will stir up a group of organized protesters. No projection there. Just as church groups would get together and make signs or write letters, this gamer mob can always be counted on to gather on message boards and plan a strike. They use DDoS attacks and hordes of sock puppet accounts on Twitter instead of standing outside a concert, but the results are the same. What's disturbing is what they attack. The religious right was alarmed by sex and satanic imagery and realistic violence. That is the first time that I have used that clip twice in a response video. Understand that I'm not trying to overplay a joke. This is incredible fucking projection. We're the ones obsessed with how women are sexualized and violence in video games. No one is this unaware. No one is unaware in that he believes women should be concealed. You either believe that women are free to dress in whatever way they wish, or you don't. In this case, you people are the ones pushing for women to dress conservatively. You, not us right-wing leftists, us religious atheists, you, the Bay Area moralists. The gamer right is fighting a war against being sad about cancer? Having a black female lead in an adventure game? Yeah, that's really what my channel is about. Shitting on people with cancer. Wow, great work there, Tony Shalhoub. You really cracked the case. And I love the second part, having a black female lead in an adventure game, like Elder Scrolls, like Mass Effect, like Fallout, like every MMO ever. Another garbage straw man. You can honestly do better than this, Jeff. The conceit of the religious right was always that any exposure to certain information was a gateway drug into a godless, doomed existence. Really, though, it was just fear of change and fear of rejection, a story as old as children choosing different paths from their parents. Mainstream gaming, for all its gunfights and sex appeal, is still a world largely dominated by the same Judeo-Christian American norms. Women are largely ornamental, minorities are rarely present, shooting things is usually the best answer, and if not, it's probably getting and hoarding as many resources as possible. Except when you're in a guild in every MMO ever made. For all the outrage, the game's protesters fought in the 90s were very much in line with their core values. The only argument was over how much blood and sex teenagers should get to see. Just cinder block awareness on display yet again. Games like Gone Home and Life is Strange and Undertale are all very much rejections of traditional gaming norms. They are the gaming equivalent of a child becoming an atheist after being brought up religious. I didn't become an atheist because it's what hipsters do on the West Coast. It was an uneasy process of using my existing skepticism, which I had while I was religious, against beliefs I was indoctrinated into. It worsened my relationship with my parents. It makes my mother, in particular, paranoid that I'm going to be justly discriminated against in life, and it keeps me from the casual ignorance about death most people seem to live with. If you think that being an atheist is about being trendy or being smarter than other people, you failed to do what I did in the process of abandoning religion, which is killing your ego. Ego is what keeps people from challenging their core beliefs. Ego is what keeps people deluded by hope, faith, and their garbage dogmas. That's your problem, Jeff. You kept your ego. You think you're the fucking shit, and you just know everything about what makes a game worth playing. When I say that someone is a fucking nobody, this is what I mean. Your ego makes you think you are what you aren't. You aren't special. Your opinion isn't all that unique. You aren't particularly intelligent compared to most people, and more likely than not, you'll never achieve something in life that the majority of people couldn't also do. You're a writer. Wow, how special. I wrote this script. You came in a girl, and now you're a father. Fuck me, I think only you and my dad have done that before. This applies to me. This applies to you listening to this. And this applies to Jeff. You are a fucking nobody. You don't know jack shit and have no right to apply your ignorance onto other people. Collectivism is driven by ego. Lots of players like that, for the same reason lots of people enjoyed weird indie films or underground noise bands. Gamers, though, are people who have made games and games culture a core identity. It's one of the reasons why, even though I play games every day, I no longer refer to myself as a gamer. The term has come to refer to a small group who treat playing games as a simulated oppressed class. Some even spell it with a capital G. Again, this is just projection. Gamers aren't united by a totalitarian worldview. You people are. They use games not for enjoyment, but to bolster their traditional values that empower a very straight, white, male point of view. It's no different from churchgoers who define themselves by pro-life activism or who spend all their time opposing marriage equality. The gamer right has its moral crusade now. It wants gaming to be orthodox and traditional and easy to swallow without thinking too much about it. Even something like That Dragon Cancer, truly a game I assume everyone could agree with at least a moving idea, cannot be tolerated. Not if feminists, I'm glad that you finally brought up your faith to seal the projection in this article. Not if feminists think it's good, and not if there isn't any power fantasy to fulfill. The religious right fought to keep sex and murder from interactive media, and their ideological successors are fighting to keep thought out of it with the same unquestioning zealousness. Projection.
Doesn't really matter what the fuck happens. All that matters is the video. And I'm just going to tell you that this is by far the worst that I found. This one is so fucking ridiculous that I'm willing to say